Short for Justice with Almas Jovindah. Road rage is such a horrible phenomenon, such an ugly phenomenon, and somehow or the other, this has defaced our society. The recent incident that took place in Karachi, where the newly elected member parliament was slapping, shouting, and whatnot to a common citizen. Is this the characteristic of a parliamentarian? What are the consequences, the legal consequences? Nobody knew. Today we are going to elaborate this thing, that this kind of phenomena and the people who come to the road and try to demonstrate their power with the help of the fleet of cars and the army of the bodyguards that they carry with them, and they demonstrate that weapons that they carry with them. No, there are some serious legal consequences that you people can face, and this must be learned by all of us actually, and this must be an alarming situation for the government also. How can somebody who is newly elected to the parliament can take the control of the general public order in his hands? This is not a usual practice, and if something like this has happened, you come out of your car, you start shouting and slapping people. Isn't the terrorism, does this not fall in the domain of Anti-Terrorism Act? Well, in the past, you have taken certain parliamentarians and other people their cognizance, because they have created a terror. The similar kind of terror was created few days back also. But what the government has done, this is the high time that the newly elected government, the government that is going to create an impact, the government that need to create a deter, must demonstrate. But for the general public, what we have arranged in this segment is a very informative talk, and that too with a guy who has got a police background. What general public should do in this kind of situation? The scuffle, the intolerance that we see in our society, that's a day-to-day phenomena now. In this kind of situation, how the police should act actually, the effectees, the people who get affected, how they can approach police, and the offenders, they should not go scot-free. There are laws available, and let's learn from one of a very learned colleague of ours. He is DIG police, Farooq Azam Khan Sahab, a very passionate gentleman, having a lot of compassion, and a learned guy. He is going to tell us the role of the police, what the people who are affected, they need to be done, and how the offenders, they can be taken to the courts of the law.
As far as the legal aspect, the police aspect of such incidents and such occurrences is concerned, this certainly is not the first time that a scuffle has taken place at a public place, and certainly not the last time. But when some gentleman of prominence indulges in such behavior in public, it is sort of talk of the town, so to speak. What would a person do? Because you see, there is a schedule of cognizable offences for police. Cognizable means that cases or occurrences that the police can take cognizance or legal notice, in other words, of. Now, those schedules, those lists are changed from time to time. There was a time back up till the 60s that police used to take cognizance of weights and measures. That if somebody was selling something at a market, and let's say he said it's 1 kilo, the police would come and check whether it is 1 kilo or not. And if it was not, the police would register a case against him. You see, now that has been taken away from the police cognizance list, taken off that list, and given over to the special magistrates and municipal magistrates. And without getting into the debate of whether that's good or bad, because police has got other things to do, and I for one, and so many others, and legal fraternity included, or I should say legal sorority as well. Excuse I didn't mean to be gender biased, but the police already has its hands full with crime, with terrorism, with so many other things. So whatever. Scuffle as such is not a cognizable offence in itself. Somebody shouts at you, yells at you, it's not an offence in the police terms. However, there are aberrations and attachments along with this scuffle, shouting and cursing that do involve the police in one way or another. Is there a restraint involved in the scuffle? Is there some bodily injury as a result of the scuffle? Is the offender, the guy who's attacking you, is he in possession of a weapon or a tool that could be or can be used as a weapon? Does the offender or the person who's having a scuffle with you, does he have accomplices? He's got 5-6 friends. Does he have scary looking bodyguards which are roaming around our cities these days? Are those bodyguards or friends armed or unarmed? Or if they're armed, are they armed with just plain sticks or just wheel spanners gotten off the trunk of cars, or they have automatic weapons? I mean, these things then change the whole composition of the scuffle. And what was the result of the scuffle? Did it result in an injury to anybody? Or and besides others, did this scuffle, which took in a public place, a parking lot or a road, from what I saw, a glimpse of this particular scuffle we're talking about, there was a car parked sort of halfway in between the road. Did it cause a traffic blockade? Did it close the road, the traffic artery? Did as a result of this somebody else get hurt? Now the duty of the police in such cases, as is everybody's duty, is to come and sort of mediate and finish it before it turns ugly. If nobody listens, and if they don't listen and they keep on fighting with each other, the thing is ongoing, then it's the duty of the police or any private citizen for that matter to get a hold of these people, take them to police station, restrain them, and apply a preventive section. As to the question of this being a compoundable offence or not, let me just quickly, shortly, briefly go into what is a compoundable offence. For those of my friends who have no exposure, who are lucky enough not to have the exposure of any legal or criminal proceedings or being up against any of the sort. You see, there are crimes against the person, crimes against property, crimes against the state. Then there are other crimes which are violations of certain local and special laws, like jumping a red light, going on a one-way, things like that. This may be not that a serious offence, but no doubt it is an offence and a violation of a rule. These are called local and special laws. There are the religious provisions, like sanctity from Zan ordinance, the Hudud ordinance. There's so many of these. Now, those against the state, like sedition and treachery, or currency offences, I can give you a fake 1,000 rupee note, and now you will go register a case of fraud against me, and then tomorrow we'll reach a compromise, and you will forgive me, since it's, as we discussed, compoundable, since it's a compoundable offence because I have wronged you, so you can forgive me. But in this case, I have wronged the state also by faking a 1,000 rupee note or 100 or whatever, even if it's a small 1 paisa coin. If I made it fake, I have committed an offence against the state, and that is not compoundable. So there are the compoundable offences and the non-compoundable offences. Now, if it's like murder, okay, in a civilized society, murder is a very serious crime, in every society for that matter. It's a serious crime and it's taken very seriously. But from the moment that the victim's family or friends, now again, if you go, who will be an applicant in common language, but an applicant when goes to the police station or a court and files a complaint becomes the complainant. So from this moment a person becomes a complainant by lodging a report at a police station, the investigation part, the submitting of challan in court, the prosecution part, the duration of the trial, till the final end result of the trial. Anywhere between these 2 points, a complainant that is an aggrieved party, can forgive the offender, the offending party. But that is only in cases against property and person where I can forgive. The state or the police or the court is not concerned whether I forgive him or whether I take qasas. Now, cases that are not compoundable and the state takes things. Now, you see, if there's a murder that takes place in daylight, plain sight, a very busy mall or on the roadside or a highway where there are 2,000 people who saw that murder occur. But since the victim party decides to forgive, so they can. But there's a catch to this. The but is, and that if there is another section of, let's say, the Anti-Terrorist Act, the ATA added, so that changes the whole scenario. That takes the ball game, the ball out of the court of the victim's side and put it in the state side. Now, the terrorist sections cannot be forgiven by the victim. If something like this happens, cognizable or not, you should go to the police station, give an application as to the occurrence, as to what happened. When you do that, kindly remember two things in this regard. One, don't ask for an FIR, because the answer you're going to get is that this is not cognizable. And he'll be right, the police will be right, it's not cognizable. Don't ask for an FIR. Ask for a daily diary report, which is called a Roznamcha report. So you get a copy of the Roznamcha report with you, keep it in your record. Why I say this? I say this because if there is a repetition, number one, of the incident, number two, if there is a follow-up action on the part of that gentleman, the offender, let's say you see him again in the market the next day, you see him in the mall, you see him at a red light, you see him at the university or at the clinic or wherever, and what if he starts acting up again? So you need to have that legal backup on police record. Number three, what if there is some other aberration related to that? That here you are, you said this to me, now let me prove, let me show you who I am, things of that sort. You see, these are all crimes of ego, if I may be allowed to use the word. So, since ego is a lot to do with the human mind, and we certainly cannot foretell, or we certainly cannot explain what the human mind goes through and what it does. So, it is better to be legally safe to have that daily diary report. The other thing, while giving the daily diary report, that should be considered is that be truthful. Please do not try to be fanciful. Do not listen to people who try to tell you that I am very wise when it comes to law and I want to tell you the tricks of the trade, have this section added, have that section added. Don't do that. You will ruin your whole entire case, your premise. Tomorrow if something actually happens, any untoward thing happens, you will have nowhere to fall back on even if you have the report, because you have not been truthful in that. You see, the problem in our culture about this thing, you must have heard, police does not lodge FIRs and things like that. But let me tell you what the FIRs that are lodged. How many of them are factual and how many of them are 100% factual? We say, well, so-and-so had a fight with me, so let me entangle him into something. So I put his name, I say, okay, put his brother's name. He was there. I put his father's name. The father said, kill him. I did that. You see, all these are good for the short term. And these are good for people who are old hands at these things. For a middle class, working class, salaried, white collar, blue collar, sharif person, these things do not work. So stick to the facts. So unless there's a very rare incident like this, majority of them, you have to have two hands to clap. So if you have one hand and the other doesn't respond, so there's nothing to clap with.